Dad knew how to pick the right musicians, let me just tell you. So the woodwinds are dying. I just want you all to give them another round of applause.
So good afternoon. My name is Greg Miller, and I first met Robert Boudreau in the spring of 1987 when he and Kathleen came to Oberlin College to hold auditions for the American Wind Symphony. Although I don't recall much about the audition itself, I must have played fairly well, as I was invited to join the orchestra for that upcoming tour. The audition and the ensuing summer changed my life forever. And as I look around the room today, I am reminded of the incredible impact that Robert had on the career path for so many of us. I do want to make a disclaimer here before I go on, which is to say that I was the orange van driver that Dawn spoke of. And I will go on to say that on that experience, and several others like it, Robert was a human being who, with his faults and all of the things that go with being human, Robert certainly understood everyone. And in fact, that was the summer that Robert fired me 3 times. And each time, and it was all because of the driving, of course, but each time I would come in to see him, he would make known the infraction that I was there for, and he would discuss the things that were not good about that, and the reflection that it had on the orchestra, myself, and he would say, hand over the keys. And I would put the keys on the desk and he would take them. And after about a 45-minute or an hour conversation, he was pushing the keys back across the desk, telling me to please behave. And as I said, that happened 3 more times. But without question, Robert has left an indelible mark on the music world. One that not only has touched those who were privileged to play under his baton, but those who were witness to the music making from the shores and the riverbanks of the small towns and communities throughout the United States and abroad. Robert was woke before anyone knew what that meant. His wind orchestra was comprised of musicians from all ethnicities, cultures, and backgrounds. And we were involved in community outreach and service long before it was popular. He commissioned works from underrepresented composers and programmed them alongside, as you heard today, the works of Bach, Mozart, Dvorak, and Strauss. As many of us know quite well, Robert's love for the cultures and the music that was from all over the world had a way of pushing the limits of musicians and audiences in a way that made us more appreciative, more curious, more confident, more tolerant, and more caring. If it is possible to describe Robert in one word, and I know we've had a few of the words tossed around today, but the word that I think most is appropriate is that he was absolutely fearless. This quality was one that I witnessed over and over during the summer of 1987, whether it was premiering a new work, navigating the point counterpoint 2 through the very narrow banks of the Erie Barge Canal, asking perfect strangers for donations or to house his musicians. In fact, this intimate setting, which Kathleen mentioned earlier, where smaller chamber works were performed, holds some of my favorite memories as well. It was here that I learned the most about musicianship, the history of a particular work, and fundraising. You see, this was often Robert's opportunity to pull on the heartstrings and the purse strings at the same time. It was absolutely genius. In fact, looking over here at this table with the cheese and crackers, I am reminded of how Robert would often begin his introductory remarks by letting his donors know that he had to resort to Cheese Whiz as a cost-saving measure. It was never not funny, and like Johnny Carson's sidekick, Ed McMahon, I would laugh the loudest every single time. And although I only served one season with the American Wind Symphony, I was extremely fortunate to have been asked by Robert, or voluntold probably, to help pilot the boat back from Huntsville, Alabama to Pittsburgh, a journey that would take 2.5 weeks, but felt like an eternity, and would include dozens and dozens of river locks as we made our way north up the Tombigbee River to the Mississippi, and then east on the Ohio, finally making our way to Pittsburgh. Life at 6 knots is rather fascinating, and it is a trip that I will always remember and one that I recall quite often. As some of you know, and as has been pointed out by Brad, I have served on the faculty of the University of Maryland since 2000, and for the last 4 years have served as its director of the School of Music, that is. Robert's connection to the University of Maryland goes back nearly 20 years when I first invited him to serve as the interim conductor of our wind ensemble. Although he agreed to serve in this capacity, he was adamant that he would only conduct a wind orchestra, which of course would eliminate anyone in the school who played saxophone and euphonium. But in the end, it all worked out, in fact, better than anyone could have anticipated. Following his year-long tenure as interim director, the decision was made that the University of Maryland School of Music would create the first wind orchestra in a university setting. And today, our wind orchestra is conducted by no other than an American Wind Symphony Orchestra alumnus, Dr. Michael Voda. So nearly 4 years ago, Robert reached out to me and wanted to discuss the possibility of the University of Maryland becoming the stewards of the AWSO Library. After some lengthy conversations with Peters Publishing and Robert and Kathleen, I am proud to say that the University of Maryland School of Music is the new home for the entire AWSO library. Through Robert and Kathleen's gift, the music of the AWSO will continue to be played and performed. But more importantly, the legacy of Robert Boudreau and the American Wind Symphony will continue for generations to come. So on behalf of the University of Maryland, I want to publicly thank and acknowledge the entire Boudreau family for their incredible gift. I will also say that Don Lucas is probably the only person that I have ever met who could bring the people at a memorial service to tears through laughing. So congratulations. So our final piece on the program could not be more fitting. It was one of Robert's favorite, and we performed it often in settings like this, or in churches in small towns and communities that we visited. Written by Henri Tomasi, it is a part of a larger work, an opera he composed entitled Don Juan de Manera. This work involves 4 fanfares that are played in the opera, with the 4th fanfare coming at the end, depicting a procession through the streets of Seville during Holy Week. Here, Miguel Manera mourns the passing of his beloved wife, but his spirits are lifted by the music. It begins with the percussion, with the brass following behind. The intensity builds, turning into an ardent chorale. The final bars of the piece invoke a triumphant call, invoking hope and promise for the future. Henri Tomasi, the fanfare liturgist.